Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Fort Zeiss Council Work Session meeting. Today is Monday, April the 4th, 2022. The time is now 7:31 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Yes, sir. Councilman Lilly. Council President Hines. Councilwoman Noble. Here. Councilman Barnes.
Here.
Councilman Kennedy.
Here.
Councilman Atkinson. Mayor Washington.
Here.
We have a quorum.
If we can have a moment of silence. And if we could all stand for our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the agenda, there was a slight problem with the legislation. Yeah,
Which one?
number 9B in is it 22A, I think it is.
So, resolution 1722.
Yeah, I think it's
And-
1622.
So, so it's A and B?
Right, no, resolution 1722,
Okay.
B, and
I think you're talking about the original packet that went out.
oh, okay, yeah, this is a different.
Yeah, this
okay,
was-
yeah,
this was-
okay, yeah, okay, all right, sorry.
Okay, no problem. It's been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's agenda. All in favor? Aye. Let me see. I move that we approve the minutes from March 7th, 2022 and March 16th, 2022.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from meetings March 7th, work session, and the town meeting on March 16th, 2020.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the meeting minutes from March 7th and March 16th. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, public period.
Mayor Washington, no one asked to speak.
We'll move right into reports. Are there any questions regarding the treasurer's report? Last call. All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Any questions regarding the Public Works Director's report? Last call. Hearing none, we'll move on. Are there any questions regarding the ombudsman report? Last call. Hearing none, moving on. Are there any questions regarding the police chief's report? All right. Hearing none. Moving on. Okay, there's no ARPA report for the month of March from Mr. O'Connor. There will be no report for the month of March. There were no expenditures that need reporting for the month of March. Next, we'll have our town administrator report. Are there any questions regarding the town administrator's report? All right, hearing none, last call. We'll be moving on. All right. Ward reports. Mayor and ward reports. I'll go first on that. I attended the Maryland Mayors Association 2022 conference in Annapolis this past week. It was very interesting. It was my first one as a mayor, and I was just delighted to meet so many other mayors. I was able to, secure myself a couple of mentors that have been in the business for a while. I got to have a long, extensive conversation with the governor and many other people at the State House, the delegates, and the Maryland Senate. It was interesting. I learned a lot, and I believe that I've definitely made some connections, and we'll be bringing some of those ideas to Forest Heights, so stand by for the comments. That's all I got. Ward 1.
Nothing to report.
Ward 2.
Nothing today.
Thank you, sir. And Ward 3.
For Ward 3, I just want to say that, I guess this is Ward 2 and Ward 3, that we're seeing some progress on Creek Drive with our initial phase for the stormwater project, and I thank Mr. Bond and Mr. Robinson for coming behind FES to tell them what else needs to be done. And also, because of the drain issues, I attended the Prince George's County. They had with Charlie Griffith, the Associate Director of the Office of Storm Drain Maintenance. So just getting a better understanding of stormwater drain. So I do have a booklet that Mr. Bond and I talked about copying it for our residents. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Noel. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our mayor and ward, council member, ward reports. We're going to move right into legislation. All right. Excuse me. Our first resolution of the night is 1622. It is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant awarded from the United States Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS, in the amount of $864,000 over a 3-year period through the COPS hiring program for 4 police officers, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. I move that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1622. It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1622. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll move right into discussion. We won't be voting on this resolution tonight. So, discussion. I'll start off I guess the meat and potatoes of this particular resolution, which is a very short one, is in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 whereas. It clearly states where the funds will be allocated from to support this matching grant. Any further discussion on 1622?
I guess just one question. This is a 3-year period, so when would this hiring process start, or will it start in conjunction with the budget that we already have for our officers?
Arthur, Chief, Deputy Chief. Somebody take the podium, please.
Do this one together.
It'll be a joint effort.
It will. Mayor and Council, briefly, this process has already started with the officers with the council, already approved limited use of the American Rescue Plan, so those officers are already starting onboarding. The chief can go ahead and add the particular amount of numbers, but it would be in this budget cycle and will continue through the next fiscal years.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, Council. So the department has already started the process, and we've already hired 2 people out of the 4 with using the American Rescue Plan funds for the COPS grant.
Any further discussion or questions for Mr. O'Connor or the chief? All right. Moving right along. Resolution, Town of Forsyth's Resolution 1722. A resolution approving a purchase and service agreement with Diligent to acquire board docs software regarding electronic meeting agendas and record retention to be administered by the Forsyth's Clerk's Office, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. I move that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1722.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1722. Discussion.
What do we, so this is basically electronically storing all of our records.
This will be, and I'm gonna call up, Mr. O'Connor. This system is great in so many different ways. He can explain it to you much better than I can. Mr. O'Connor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Board Docs is a solution that's used for meeting management as well as record retention to help comply with the Maryland Public Information Act, as well as meeting accessibility for our citizens that are able to log into the system and see the meeting agendas. Overall, for the council, what that means is you'll no longer have to worry about getting multiple packets. All right, they're all electronic for you. Everything is up to date. The votes are recorded within the system. It makes the clerk's job that much easier when she's trying to navigate all the various facets of town government and moving parts. For the council, you'll be able to log in and see a totally different dynamic than the citizens would see, because you're going to have different views for closed session, the agenda's laid out, the mayor has his section, the town attorney has his section as well. So it really puts a nice flow to the meeting, as well as it keeps it organized with the times. Ultimately, the biggest thing about this is the record retention for as long as you have this service. So the citizens will be able to access all of the documents at any point in time. As far as records retention, resolutions for town staff, it will also be held inclusive there. Such municipalities that use it are Charles County, St. Mary's County, Conoco County, Baltimore County, Frederick, public schools. It is actually the new leading industry standard in running municipal government meetings for openness for the citizens, as well as organization for the mayor and council or county executives, however you're going to look at it.
Mr. O'Connor, do you have, and I know you mentioned counties or whatever, but I'm pretty sure my peers up here want to know which municipalities that you know of are currently using board docs.
Yes, La Plata currently uses it. The city of Sea Pleasant currently uses it. With Laurel, I have to double check on Laurel, but I'm pretty sure Laurel does use it. Yeah. So when you're looking at the municipalities that are currently using it, that's where you are. They're really embedded themselves deeply into the municipal government as well as county governments within the state of Maryland.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. O'Connor?
Oh, just one question, Mr. O'Connor. The price is $8,000 a year. Is there any monthly, like, service, additional fees?
No, I quoted out Board Docs Plus, which is the one that it encompasses all the facets. I'm familiar with Board Docs Plus. I've used it for the last 7 years, so I found that to be the best solution. So that is the pricing that you have there is the pricing that you're going to get for the future using it.
Okay, and does it require any training?
Yes, and I will help facilitate that training, as well as the company helps provide the training. We'll have different training sessions, not only for staff, but for the council in navigating the system and how to utilize the system during meetings.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also assuming that you can download, I guess, all the information onto some type of format.
Absolutely. Every single document that's loaded into the system is able to be downloaded. You can upload them in Microsoft Word or PDF based on the view that you're seeing. Now, obviously, for the outward, everything would be in PDF. This way it couldn't be manipulated. Anything that's inside the government would be in Microsoft Word. So if you decided that you did want to download it and bring it in that style or capacity, you could easily download it just by clicking on a link.
Okay. I was just curious because you stated as long as we're utilizing the service, we have full access to it. But let's say at some point where we come to a crossover where we do sever ties, is that information going to be lost, or will we be able to download all of that prior to?
Now, it'll be archived and you'll be able to retain that information. That's one of the biggest questions that governments have. If I stop paying this subscription, is all of our information gone? The answer is no, it's stored. That information is yours forever. It's just a continuation of that service that you wouldn't be able to use any further, the actual features within the system.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right. We'll move on to Resolution 1822, Town of Forest Heights. A resolution to approve a sub-recipient agreement between the town and the Greater Oxon Hill Community Development Corporation for use of the American Rescue Act funds, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. I move that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1822.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1822. All in favor? Aye. Okay, discussion.
Just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
The town is entering into a sub-recipient agreement. I'm just trying to understand that, because I guess what I'm understanding, on one part, we're gonna give the CDC $10,000, but we have to agree to, or they have to agree, and we have to agree. Is that correct?
Right, this recipient agreement, it's basically, you know, we've received this ARPA money, and we've already approved a plan to give to nonprofits. One of the first nonprofits that we thought we would give to was, you know, our closest neighbor, which is the CDC. This recipient agreement that was drafted, it's basically the agreement to let them know that, hey, we're giving you this money, but in this agreement, we need to know what you're doing with the money. We need to be able to do that for accurate reporting. So that's why the sub-recipient agreement was developed, to ensure that they understand and everybody's playing on the same deck of cards.
I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any further discussion on 1822? And I'll just end with this, you know, even though the CDC was the first one, there are, you know, St. Matthew's Church or St. Mark's, Hope
Project.
Hope Project, you
Or
know,
Oxford.
we have a couple more that we like to, you know, to do the same thing with, but this was the first one that we started off with. Okay, 19, and no more discussion on 1822. Resolution, Town of Forest Heights Resolution 1922. This is a resolution to authorize the acceptance of a grant from Local Government Insurance Trust, legit, for body cameras for the Town of Forest Heights Police Department, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. Basically, I'm sorry, I move that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1922.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 1922. All in favor? Aye. Discussion. This is not a matching grant. Legit's giving us $5 grand to give the police some more body cameras, which is much needed. Going once. request. So, moving right on. Our next resolution will be Resolution 2022. It is a resolution to deadline and/or sell or otherwise dispose of surplus police vehicles, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. I move that we waive the full reading of Resolution 20-22.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 2022. Discussion. All righty. That ends discussion on 2022. Moving right along. So, our next resolution will be Resolution 2122. This is a resolution that, due to time constraints, I would like to vote on tonight, but let me go ahead and get all of it together. 21, 22, 21, all right. And give you this wonderful title. Resolution 2122. It's a resolution to purchase 5 police vehicles and equipment as an addition to the fleet for new cops grant officers, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. I move that we waive the full reading of Resolution 21-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 2122. All in favor? Aye. Discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. I move that we adopt Resolution 21-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 21-22. Discussion. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call for the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Barnes,
Yes.
Councilmember Noble,
Yes.
Mayor Washington.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. Resolution 2222. Okay. Mayor and Town Council, Town of Forest Heights, Resolution 2222. It's a resolution to set forth and establish the town's real property tax rate for fiscal year 2023, introduced by the Town Council. I move that we waive the full reading of Resolution 2222.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 2222. All in favor? Aye. Discussion.
The only, and I don't know if this can be done for the town meeting or not. And I'll ask the mayor and treasurer, just to see if we raise this, how much more would the you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out how much more would the town get based on our current numbers.
Okay. You said you'd like to see that for the town meeting.
Right.
Ms. Vaughn, can you facilitate that for the next meeting, just to show the difference in numbers?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I can.
Any further discussion on the constant real rate? Resolution 2222?
Mayor, can I? What were you getting ready to ask,
I
Councilwoman?
said deadline for communicating back to the state or county, to the state.
To the state, yes, there's specific deadlines once we adopt.
Okay,
And to the county, they normally ask us by the end of May,
end of May, okay.
by the end of May. But what I wanted to offer to the council is that the town has been dealing with 3 classes. And that when we begin to look at 2 of them, we find that those 2 are exempt. We can raise those without a hearing. And that would be the rented residential and the commercial taxes without a hearing. We have to have a hearing in order to raise the non-commercial, the residential property. In past years, we have never done anything differently between the rented residential and the non-commercial property. They've been right there with each other. But in past years, we have not received a certification for the rented residential property. This year, the State Department of Assessment and Taxation they issued a certification. And you'll see that the constant real tax rate on the certification is lower than that of our residential property. And so what the town has done in past years has adopted the one rate to suffice both pieces of property. And SDAT issues theirs based on what they considered non-owner occupied property, according to their records. And we're in a position where we need to marry our records for people who rent with their records. And so when you consider, if you're considering increasing the tax rate for your residents, then the recommendation is, what it's really saying is that we need to, this year especially, put those same rates in place for the rent residential. Ask your question. You okay?
I'm fine.
Any further discussion on the council bill waiver on resolution 2222? All right, hearing none, we moving on. Resolution 2322, a resolution to establish a renewable energy goal for the municipal government in the town of Forest Heights, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. I move that we waive the full reading of resolution 2322.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of resolution 2322. All in favor? Aye. Discussion. If you move to the second page of resolution 2322 and go down to the second whereas, whereas the town of Forest Heights is dedicated to being a better steward of its land and resources, as well as the town's recent collaboration with Petco to install, it's not 20, it's 6. All right? 6 electronic charging stations on not county, but town property. So we'll be amending that for the voting session. Update your packet, so we'll, just so you know, just know that it's not 20 of them that we're trying to install. And it is on town property and not county property. All right? Any further discussion on resolution 2322?
Just a question.
Yes,
I see by the year 2030, we're going to be at 100%, but
That's the intent.
right, that's the intent. So what I'm trying to figure out, where are we now? Are we at 10%? Are we at least 50? Or how are we going to phase it? And how would these 6 electric charging stations move us forward to this 100 by 2030? I will be here mine. I will not be here 2030. That's positive. That's how I feel.
Mr. Robinson, and Mike's going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I will answer by saying I don't know the exact percentage. We can certainly figure and find that out, but you know we're well on our way of becoming a smart energy, renewable energy community by way of, which is also part of the resolution, the fact that we, among very few other municipalities in this part of Prince George's County, have some electric vehicle charging stations for rent. And as you are well aware, there are probably several other aspects of what we do that puts us in this category. We've actually adopted some legislation some time ago by way of another administration that did this for us. We're just, and I think this administration is trying to renew that commitment to renewable energy. But we can get back to you with the percentage. I'll have to get in touch with, I'm not sure exactly who on the staff, maybe Mr. O'Connor, we can probably figure that out pretty easily.
Right. And I guess for me, and maybe for the residents, like a visual, you know, if we're right now in 2022 at 55%, then we can see it, and what are the other things that we need to do as a community, because it's going to take more than just the council, it's going to take the whole community to get to, and then I realize 2030 is 8 years away, so I may be around, okay? I take that back.
It's not that far away.
Oh, I thought it was a long time.
I'll remind you too, oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor, excuse me. No, I was just gonna say, I'll remind you that we do have a number of electric vehicles already on the fleet here with the town. For a town this size, it's very significant, you know, if you kind of do the ratio numbers. And some of the, in the future purchases associated with town vehicles revolve around the purchase of electric vehicles as well. So it probably won't take us as long as you might think in terms of that 100%.
And in relation to what you were talking about as far as, you know, the public and getting the citizens involved, I mean, it's the intent with this resolution over the period of time that we're trying to make it to 2030 and be 100% is to educate the public, you know, as much as we can, and, you know, get the word out to let them know, hey, listen, if you buy a Tesla, you can charge it right here in the town. You don't have to plug it into your own, you know. But Mr. O'Connor, if you could just give the educated data for me.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
So Mayor and Council, after looking at the fleet of vehicles, one of the things that this particular resolution that the Mayor was requesting focuses on the fossil fuel footprint. If you look at the fleet of vehicles that we have within the town, you'll notice that there are a few electric vehicles. However, the majority are fossil fuel vehicles. And with the charging stations being on hand from Pepco, we are able to go ahead and leverage particular grant processes that have not been leveraged before. There's 2 programs. The city of Hyattsville actually is in the way along in the process with one in which they have fleets of electric vehicles, motorcycles, and a bus. The intent of this resolution is to start the process to leverage that, to reduce the fossil fuel emissions that are currently in the fleet and start replacing with the electric vehicles. That's why you'll notice on the back page there was a draft capital project sheet for you that showed a possible scenario for the council to consider in replacing some of the fossil fuel vehicles. When you're looking at this, the 4 vehicles that the police department is now, well, we'll see next meeting, going ahead and decommission. I want to keep them on the side because it's 1-for-1 with these electric vehicles that we can get for free. So we need to turn in a fossil fuel vehicle for an electric vehicle. And along that process is looking at the other vehicles that can be purchased, getting another fossil fuel vehicle off, and then putting an electric vehicle in its place. So right now, if we were to figuratively say, based on the fleet size, we're roughly 25 to 35% towards this goal. We can easily skyrocket that up to 70% with using these electric vehicles, just based on the fossil fuel from them. Now, there's certain realities that we got to face, that law enforcement is not necessarily going to be there with all electric vehicles. It's just not there yet with the technology and reliability. But there can be a mixture that can happen based on the different services that are there, and I am working with the police chief on figuring that out. So that's why I want to give you this draft to have you consider these types of electric vehicles. We don't necessarily need every single vehicle that is on there. I can say there's a want and a need. It's for your consideration to go ahead and look at and see where you want to start by eliminating that fossil fuel footprint. So just remember, for every fossil fuel vehicle that we can pull off, we'll eventually be able to get one in one of these programs for free. So if you did choose to invest the full amount, you're actually saving the same amount in the investment for fossil fuel and the vehicles that you're going to pay. So you could see, a return on investment based on just preliminary numbers. I think I put it in here, $488,000. So it is significant in the long run, and we can get more charging stations from Pepco. They will buy into that if necessary, if it falls into the plans, and where they fit within the town. So you're good stewards of the community and bringing that forward. And that's the part you talk about. How does this work with the community? Where can we put these charging stations? And it also falls into the program with the foliage and the trees that was presented in the other grant that I was working with Mr. Robinson, pardon me. But so we're working on that. So it's part of a bigger project, which was already, the ground was already laid previously.
Right.
So that's the goal. Get up there. Is the goal to get to 100%? Is it attainable? We hope so, but if not, we're going to strive to the highest that we can get.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, I do have a question in this regarding, I guess, these electric vehicles. Have we had any problems as far as the batteries? Because I understand that the batteries for these electric vehicles are kind of expensive. And just for the, I guess, personal knowledge, maybe, to let the residents know, if they're thinking about buying an electric vehicle, give them, like pros and cons as far as, like expensive. We had any expense involving replacing batteries or anything since we loaned in?
So with the electric vehicles, the older technology from some of the cars that we have, one would be up for replacement on the batteries, but overall, when you look at the value of the vehicle to the cost of the batteries, it's actually more cost effective to pull it out and go ahead and trade that vehicle in for a newer electric vehicle. The technology of the batteries from the first generation of electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, has evolved so much that these batteries no longer have the 4 to 5 year lifespan that you were seeing in some of the Toyota hybrids when they first came out, like the Camry. They said, 5, 6 years, you're going to have to replace it. Different types of cells within the battery. Now, once, believe it or not, Tesla got into the market and some of the patents became free, they were able to use a different type of mechanism to go ahead and get these batteries with more high capacity that lasts 10, 15 years if well maintained. Plus, these vehicles do come with a maintenance plan that covers the batteries just in case. But technology has advanced so far with them, and I'm sure this is just the beginning of what we're going to see with these types of vehicles.
All right, thank you.
The numbers on this draft, are these accurate numbers for the price of these vehicles listed?
Yes, these were pulled from the National Fleet governmental bid, so these are all based on a contracted bid that's already been vetted. All municipal, well, not all, most municipal governments and our county governments will pull from this.
Have we considered possibly looking at some of the plug-in hybrids also?
Unfortunately, the plug-in hybrids often run a little bit more expensive because they're still pulling in the fossil fuel side of it. For some, of course, the economy has one of those effects where they're pushing higher rebates on the electric vehicles versus the plug-in as well as the hybrid plug-in electric. And it also depends on the make and model and manufacturer on these prices. So Jeep has one that is a electric hybrid that you can plug in. It's not there yet, and you can see a substantially different price on that. Ford right now has the best pricing on their all full electric vehicles. It's just a matter of what you'd like to consider. There's the will of the council on there. Can you get some pricing on that? I'm sure we will.
Have we considered possibly getting one all-electric vehicle out for the 5 vehicles we're looking at for the police department?
Good afternoon, Mayor, or good evening, Mayor and Council. We did consider electric vehicles for the police department. The city of Hyattsville and actually Sykesville just got a Tesla for their police department. We are still in the testing phases with electric vehicles and the use of them in pursuit conditions and all of the electronics inside of them, sustaining them for law enforcement purposes. The other thing is that most police departments have take-home privileges, so we would have to outfit those officers' home with electric chargers. So there's a few cost prohibitive things in there, but the jury is still out on police electric vehicles. So hopefully in the next year or so, there'll be some tangible data for us to make those decisions.
Well, that's why I was asking about the plug-in hybrids, because some of them claim to get 100 miles per gallon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's still using fossil fuel, so
Correct.
it excludes us from some of the grant programs. So.
Thank you.
And what we do hope, if the council does decide that they would like to start the progression towards reaching that goal and getting some of these electric vehicles, it was intentionally done for the purpose with the Ford Mustang Mach-E's because they are approved by and went through the testing with the Michigan State Police, and they're the only electric vehicle that is considered approved for law enforcement purposes in limited capacities. So it is possible to establish a pilot program, and I have spoken with the chief and the captain about the possibility of that in the future. It just depends on, of course, how many vehicles we have and going from there. But for standard patrol, after discussing it with them, it's just not feasible at this time.
Any further for 22, 23, 22? All right, thank you, Mr. O'Connor. All right. Last resolution of the night will be Town of Forsyth's Resolution 2422. It is a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the Town of Forsyth, Maryland, to approve the appointment of Gencheski Santiago as crewman 2 to serve within the Forsyth Public Works Department, introduced by Mayor Calvin Washington. I move that we wait the full reading of Resolution 2422.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the full reading of Resolution 2422. I move that we adopt Resolution 2422. No, unfortunately, he's not. And my apologies. Mr. Santiago is not here with us tonight. Mr. Santiago has been vetted and interviewed by Mr. Vaughn and Mr. Robinson. He's Captain Jones conforms to his background requirements. Mr. Vaughn has been down recruitment for quite some time, and not sure what he has right now as far as manpower, his injuries and things of that nature. But it's been a vacant position for quite some time. I do apologize for Mr. Santiago. I was not planning on asking the council to vote on this tonight, but due to the multiple public works projects that are going on and the desperate need for the position to be filled, I'm asking the council to take the word of the Public Works Director, Mr. Robinson, and Captain Jones in regards to his criminal history and pre-employment requirements to be hired for full-time employment by the town of Forsyth.
Is he a resident of the town?
No, he is not a resident of the town.
So he does know that if there's an emergency, he would.
He is well aware that he is essential personnel. If the sky is falling in Forsyth, he will be on call and respond back to put the sky back in place.
He's qualified to do that.
And he's more than qualified to do his job.
Does he have any background in any of this? this?
Mr. Vaughn?
Say again?
Does he have any type of background in anything dealing with public works?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He was at one point, employed by C. Pleasant in that capacity. And he has a well-renowned resume. His resume is covered with this. So he is qualified.
Thank you.
And also, Mayor, 7088 is the correct line item.
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. So
7088.
in this resolution, the line item, which line was that, Mr. Vaughn?
7088.
No, which paragraph? Huh?
Being further resolved.
Ah, there you go. So I would like to, I'll change that to 7088, and I move that we adopt resolution 2422 as amended to reflect 7088, striking 7085. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2422. If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk,
Yes, sir.
hearing none,
Yes, sir.
call for the roll, please.
Yes. Councilmember Vaughn.
Did you call me?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Vaughn.
Yes.
Councilmember Noble.
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy the second.
Yes.
Mayor Washington.
Yes.
Motion has passed, 4 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to recommend that an amendment be made to Resolution 21-22.
2122.
Yes, sir.
Okay, which, let me find it first, Attorney Best.
Let's
So I can- Yeah, I'm just, you said 2122, right?
21-22.
All right.
And it would be in the last be it further resolved clause on page 2.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Best. Let me just, got a lot of paper. Okay, 2022.
21-22.
2122, try to get there. Yep, 2122.
Page 2.
Page 2.
Above this tally blocks is be it further resolved. There's one above that, and be it further resolved. This transaction will proceed as further described herein, and in the above recitals, which are incorporated by reference herein, strike the period, place a comma, and then followed by this language.
After hearing.
Yes, after the word herein, comma, and the chief is hereby authorized to execute any acknowledgments,
Yes, sir.
comma, request and acceptance forms, comma, officer certificates, comma, obligors resolutions,
Yes, sir.
or other documents necessary to carry out the intent of this resolution, period.
Excuse me. I don't know if anybody else writes a slower document, but I didn't get all of that.
I got it. So you wanted to say
We'll get the revised edition.
herein and,
The chief is
that the
here.
chief is hereby authorized to execute any acknowledgments, requests, and accept, I'm sorry.
Here. Oh, go ahead.
If you can read my chicken scratch.
Yeah.
But I think I got it all. You got it?
It's recorded, right?
It's recorded. Appreciate you. I was just trying to help clerk out the matter.
Yeah.
I was right, we ready.
Well, you send us a,
Yeah,
since we voted on it, send us a.
As amended, okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to recall resolution 2122. And I'm gonna move that we adopt this resolution as amended
I can't read you things.
to reflect the statement after this last hearing, Attorney Best recited.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2122 as amended. All in favor? Aye.
You, yeah,
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Benson. Okay. All right, next up, now that concludes our legislation for the night, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, new business.
Question.
Sir.
Do we have an official policy or procedure on how to get speed humps, bumps, whatever you want to call it, installed?
New business. Mr. Vaughn,
Yes, sir, Mayor.
Councilmember Kennedy has asked, do we have any policy or procedures in place at this moment in time to acquire new speed bumps, humps, etc.?
We do not, as far as speed bumps are concerned. We will not be putting in speed bumps. We will be putting in speed humps. We are in the process at this very moment of negotiating with two companies right now as to when we got about 30 speed humps to put in, 14 to take out the speed bump and replace with speed humps. The other 14 or 15 are all speed humps. So what we've decided is that while we have talked, since we don't have a whole lot of money, we decided that we would work with the 14 speed humps, the brand new ones. We will put in the 14 brand new ones, and then we would come back and paint the other speed humps and bumps, because there are not many of them that are in disarray, but they are speed humps. So we will paint those, and then we'll come back and revisit when we get some more money. But we are in the process of negotiating that at this moment. Yes, sir. 210 Street.
yeah, I was just curious because the painted area.
I know exactly where they are. I got the address.
Okay, because.
I got an address for
The
it.
paint is gone. And
Yes,
the
sir.
answer to Mr. Kennedy's question is, the first thing they do is paint the street where they're gonna go. Okay, they painted the street on my street, like roughly about a year or so ago.
Yes, sir. I did that personally.
So, that's the first thing. They painted the street.
So
Yeah.
it's an imaginary speed hump?
No, sir. There wasn't nothing imaginary
It's not
about
there
it.
yet. So, right now.
It wasn't imaginary unless he decided he wanted to imagine it.
Well, he's saying the street was painted, but there was no.
It was. All of them, you can walk out here and see a paint mark. It was put there so the purpose so that we would know exactly where they should go. They're also addressed. They also have a map if you would like to see a map. There is a map where all the speed humps are.
So how do we get a potential street put on the list if the residents would like a speed hump?
How would you do that?
Yes.
Just call me and give me a name.
A name or a street?
The street, and then we would come out the address.
The top of Creek.
The top of Creek. Going around that bend.
Before you get to the split, you go down Sachem, make the right, That straightaway where.
But this one is going at that curve right there. Right there where Creek and, Station, right. If they come up that hill and make that turn, one goes right there.
So is it gonna be straight on one of the streets, or is it gonna be diagonally across?
They straight.
Okay, so is it gonna be physically on Satan or Creek?
Creek.
So,
Do we have a time frame?
No, sir.
I'll add my 2 cents to this. I agree with Mr. Kennedy that there needs to be, and don't get me wrong, we've been dealing with a lot of different things. There's a lot of moving parts to the town of Forest Heights right now. Streets, sidewalks, humps, bumps, whatever you want to call it. But, and you, Mr. Bond, as a public works director, I fully agree with Mr. Kennedy when he says, when he asks the question, do we have a mechanism in place?
Yes.
So, what I believe my peers would agree with me on is, do you think it is possible? Well, what we would like you to do by the next meeting is which is the 3rd Wednesday, if you have your priority list for streets, your priority list according to what's bad to least worst, put together something, a brief, just small policy of, with your list, with your priority list, and a mechanism. Create something and submit it to the council for review. We'll give you our input on it, see if we'd like to change anything. Mr. Kennedy's right. Don't get me wrong. I know we've been putting out a lot of brush fires around here. I know you got the Creek Drive project that you're working on, but there needs to be a bona fide process in place. Like we have, hear me out, Mr. Bond. Like we have with other things around here. We do have, and I'm not saying that all 3 of them need to be done. Streets, speed bumps or humps, and sidewalks, but sometime within the near future, sooner than later, and we'll start with the speed bumps, we need to see some type of policy and procedure implemented by yourself for review to the council, so we can go ahead, have it looked at, make sure everyone agrees with it, feels that it's the best plan, give you some constructive criticism if need be, and then after that, we'll move on to implementing your plan, to have a reporting system. There's a lot of things we're working on with constant contact and notifications, something that's, further down the road that we want citizens to be able to just automatically, you don't have to call anybody. You can get on your phone and, put in a repair or something like that, or a notification. We're getting there, and these things take time. But in the meantime, if we're still dealing with paper and pen and phones and good old-fashioned communicating with people, put something in place. That way, once it's codified, everybody that works in this building knows how this procedure is going to work, and we will implement that plan that you created. All right? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make a comment that Mr. Bond has talked with the Public Works Committee, and he has a plan in place. So I guess it's just notifying everyone else. So it's a legitimate plan, pricing, and his whole process. So I just want to say, it's not that we don't know.
Okay.
I would like to add, is that concerning the sidewalks, is concerning the speed humps, from the time that you originally asked, I have sent in, all that information has been put in over a year ago. I even had a RFP for the sidewalks. I had to put the speed humps, I got maps for both of them, and I had put those in well over a year ago.
All right. Okay. Well, Mr. Vaughn, if you have all that in the Public Works Committee, I'm not on it. I mean, it's a whole lot of committees around here, and I'm not, privy to everything, because I'll sit on all the committees. But if you have something that makes things even much more wonderful, make this plan public. Okay?
Mr. Mayor, sir, will you finish my comment? I'm just on a more global approach to what we're doing and what Mr. Vaughn's doing. And Mr. Kennedy, welcome back, by the way, to the council, but because of your absence, you may or may not have been told recently that Mr. Vaughn, Mr. O'Connor, and myself are working towards developing a draft capital improvements plan for the town. And so to kind of capture everything we're talking about in terms of the planning process and associated funding for these projects, I've asked Mr. Vaughn and Mr. O'Connor to begin working on that plan, which would include all of the streets that we have that need repair, all the sidewalks that we have that need repair, and the speed humps would be a part of that in terms of the capital projects that we would prioritize by way of this plan and connect that to a funding source as well. In some cases, as you all know better than anybody, we have a lot of projects and a little bit of money, and we have to go, you know, fiscal year by fiscal year in terms of prioritizing these projects. But what the CIP will do, and I think it's maybe couple of months or so away in terms of a draft that we would ultimately like to present to the council to consider as it relates to, you know, formal adoption, if you will. But, you know, I just wanted you to know that both of these departments that we're working in are putting our heads together, trying to figure out a way to put a document that's comprehensive together for all the capital improvement projects that we have, you know, underway or in mind. You may have noticed that you're starting to see a consistency in the types of forms that you're starting to see. For example, the one associated with the electric vehicles is a uniform form that we're starting to use that's been introduced by Mr. Connor with respect to some of his other legislative duties. But we think that it's going to work fantastically in the sense that you'll see that form attached theoretically to all of the projects, the capital projects that we're going to ask for your approval with respect to. It'll be uniform, you know, we just filled in different pictures and different descriptions and different fiscal components. But that will be the form that you will see that will be related to the new proposed capital improvements plan. Once we get all of the ducks in a row and all the projects kind of poured into the system, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. So we are working on just so the council will know, and I'll remind the mayor, because I've mentioned this to him, we are working on a global approach to this, because it does seem like, as the mayor said from time to time, you know, there's a shotgun approach to this, but theoretically speaking, that's not the case. We are trying to, you know, move towards a more uniform way of spending the town's money and presenting resolutions to you to do so.
Mr. Mayor, it seems to me that and I'll let you speak for yourself as elected officials, but it seems to me that what you're trying to propose is a public process whereby a property owner, a townsperson, a resident, or a group of residents can petition the town to install speed humps where they feel they're necessary. And that's very common for municipalities and county governments to have such a process whereby the citizens can petition, particularly for a speed hump program, and then the forms and the process is geared to do all the necessary review to get a proper speed hump at a particular location. Correct me if I'm wrong, that seems to be kind of the impetus of...
That's pretty much the gist of it, yes.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Councilman.
I was just gonna say, my concern has been for more than 3 years now that the speed bumps be replaced with speed humps. My line doesn't change. Speed bumps replaced with speed humps, and the speed humps are consistent throughout the town.
Yes, they
So,
will be.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, it's not just the speed humps consistency period throughout the town.
Well, for me, I'm speaking for me, it's the speed humps, because we have speed humps on Seneca are different than the speed humps on Creek, and the speed humps on Ottawa. So there are 3 sites I can direct you to. Thank you.
I had a great county administrator that I worked with for a very long time, and she always said, trust the process. So if there's a process in place, use that process. And that's exactly what Mr. Robinson, Mr. Vaughn, and I are working on. In fact, it's moved past conceptual at this point where it can be presented, and what Mr. Best was referring to in that process was one of the portions of that petitioning. But keep in mind that putting the speed humps in, I'm highly recommending that it needs to be a data-driven solution, because often residents will feel that somebody is speeding, but they're not trained in what speeding actually is. And especially at night, at night your eyes have nothing to reference, so you automatically think that cars are traveling 5 to 10 miles per hour faster than they are. Condensed roads, the same thing. So that's why already had the conversation with Mr. Robinson and the command staff of the police department. There's a device called the Black Cat, and what it does is they can deploy it on the streets where there's speeding complaints, and it pulls in all the data. It then shows if there's an enforcement level that's needed or any other remedies. So the other thing with speed humps is keeping in mind the first responders, the wear and tear on vehicles that go into that. So if there is a true problem, it actually codes it out for simplicity, which is green, yellow, and red. If we're in the red, we obviously there needs to be enforcement, education, and we need to try and get that down. But if it's persistent from that point, where even the enforcement from the police department does not change that behavior from the drivers, that's when you would want to move into the speed hump area. Consistency in accordance with the manual for uniform traffic control devices is important with the speed hump, so that needs to be something there. And I would say you'll have a work product out relatively soon on this process and policy that we worked collaboratively on, and actually Mr. Robinson and Mr. Vaughn have brought it up to my attention, so I've been working with them on it.
Thank you, Mr.
Do we have one of these devices that you mentioned that can be deployed?
I got the quote on it, and we are going to be purchasing one. So it's simple. It's a quick turnaround time because all the parts are in. They just build it. I've used one previously for years, and they are amazing when it comes down to recording the speed of the vehicle, the volume of traffic.
Is it economical enough to purchase more than one?
It can be, yes. They vary in price based on the size of the device, but if you want to purchase more than one, it is economical enough, and the return on investment is very significant, especially when you're talking about the costs associated with a speed measuring device versus installing speed humps that need to be maintained over a long period of time, as well as the initial cost of installation. So, yes.
Yeah, at least that we have something tangible that we can base the next step in the process.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other new business? All right. We just have one bit. I'll just read you this brief real quick to tell you what the purpose of this new business is. So the fiscal year 2021 annual audit is underway with UHY LLC. And as you know, the town has requested an extension from the state of Maryland to complete the audit, which will allow time for us to satisfy the increased information requirements of the new auditor. However, during this process, the town has determined that the audit is still behind schedule because of the need to provide increased information, and because the town accounting and audit functions and responsibilities over the past couple of years have significantly increased, with no increase in her resources. To catch up and speed up our information response to UHY LLC, the town has enlisted the services of Francis DeSalvo, CPA, to help compile the information to complete the audit. As you're aware, Mr. DeSalvo has been the town auditor for a number of years past and has the experience to help fast track the audit because of the history of work with us. Staff along will also providing staffing resources, recommendations to the mayor and council as part of our upcoming fiscal year 2023 budget process to address the matter for the future. So I'm giving you a copy of what I was forced to do in order for us to complete our 2022 audit, and to get us started where we should already be starting on the 2023. I realize that some of you may have some questions about this. I do have the treasurer present. I do have Mr. Robinson present, and I just wanted to be transparent, let you guys know what we had to do because it needed to be done. And in no way, shape, form, or fashion that I want us to be delinquent with the audit. So, if you have any questions, I just would say this: if it's anything of a personnel matter, we will have to go into a closed session to discuss it. But I'm open to questions.
Just one, and it's not personnel, I wouldn't say, but it says a period of 60 days. Is 60 days the drop dead days, or is it, you know what I'm saying, at this rate?
60 days is what, after speaking with Mr. DeSalvo, is what we think is adequate enough time for us to acquire some of these documents and to check again before we submit them to UHY. Over the past 11 years that I guess Mr. DeSalvo has been with us, he's provided certain things like schedules. Ms. Vaughn, could you just name 3 of those schedules again? Like
You have a debt schedule.
debt schedule, yes.
Fixed asset?
Fixed asset.
Fixed assets. You have your leasing
Okay.
schedule.
Stop right there for a second. So those things have Mr. DeSalvo has done for all of these years. UHY, our new auditor, these things are normally provided to an auditing firm such as them, and they don't do those particular. They don't prepare those documents. Our treasurer, since her job is beginning, she's never had to prepare any of those documents, and we were finding it quite difficult to gather that information. I'm gonna let Mr. Robinson jump in and give you a little bit more background, but go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, it's pretty simple. I think, you know, at the risk of being long-winded, I think with the mayor, he's reading, by the way, from my town council report. It's in your package. I think what he said is basically, you know, the bottom line here. We're behind schedule because of the increased need for compiling this information. When we switched, in a nutshell, when we switched auditing firms, some of the information that we were used to getting by way of the relationship we had with Mr. DeSalvo fell on the treasurer to get solo. And so that was one of many, you know, aspects of information that she had to work into her, I'll just say, already busy schedule to provide in a timely fashion. And so, you know, primarily the scenario is such that we need more resources from a financial and auditing standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint for the town. I'll remind y'all, and I've had, you know, sidebars, conversations with a lot of the council members about how I believe the town's going to another level in terms of service provision. You know, we've got a mixed-use project on the horizon, the National View project up on, you know, close to the, what is that, the property associated with the Oxen Hill Farm. That's, you know, going to change the dynamics of the budget, change the dynamics of amenities and services associated with the town. We've got a police force of, what are we up to, 19 or 20 or so sworn police officers now on the streets. That's why you're, you know, being entertained by a lot of these requests for vehicles and other, you know, technological advances to go along with and support that. The town is just going to the next level. In my opinion, we're graduating to a point where we just need more resources, and I think this is another one of those growing pains associated with what we're doing. Our finances are becoming more sophisticated. They're becoming more in terms of the budget that we have. We've got, for example, another $2.5 million of ARPA funds that we've never had before in the history of the town. Just, you know, that's historically maybe 1/5 of what our budget typically is, $2.5 million. So, you know, what we're doing is we're pouring a lot into the pot, but we don't necessarily have a spoon big enough to stir it, for lack of a better metaphor. But this is just one of those growing pains that we're going through. We're probably going to come to you and suggest, or at least discuss, entertain some upgrade in terms of resources for the financial department or for Leah's office, treasurer's office, for that reason. But this is something that has to be dealt with from a time standpoint before we get to the end of the fiscal year. And so, you know, if any of what I'm saying makes any sense, there's a picture being painted here in terms of how we just need to kind of fill in the gap, get this particular fiscal year 21 audit completed, so we can turn right around and start on the fiscal year 22 audit, which will be due in October of this year. So that's, I don't know if I painted a picture that makes any sense or not, but we just got a lot going on, and we've got to keep moving.
No. And I guess my question is, these schedules are always due with the audit, or is this something new, the schedules? And we've asked for extensions, not just this time, but prior to, right? So, yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to figure out, and it may be that our financial office needs more up to date, or, you know, we need to get caught up, because we can't keep making, painting pictures that, you know, everybody just, I don't see it. I don't see it, because this is something that happens every year, and that audit is part of the financial check on this town. And it's gotta be done, it's gotta be on the money. So if the treasurer's office needs other software, because I know we approved last year in the budget for the treasurer to get an assistant to help with, you know, some of these things,
So then you see what I'm saying, then. If you,
No, I don't.
If you understand that we, for example, hired Mr. O'Connor. to
I
take
hear
on
what
some
you're
of
saying,
those
I don't
duties.
see it. You see
Well-
the picture, I don't see it.
He's part of the scenario,
Yeah.
the brand new scenario to address this issue. He came on some time ago. And, you know, this is a culmination of what we're talking about.
Right. But what I'm saying is, we've always asked for extensions on the audit. So it's not like it just occurred when Mr. O'Connor came to solve the problem.
Well, I will tell you that.
That's what I was saying. I just want us to be realistic too.
At the
You
risk
see
of
the
being
picture I'm
argumentative,
painting?
Councilwoman, yes, ma'am. At the risk of being argumentative, I'd maybe like to sidebar with you and show you the difference between the extensions we've asked for in the past, maybe once, that kind of thing, to meet the deadline, versus the number of extensions that we're talking about now. Paints a different picture. Be happy to talk to you offline about all those things, but there's more to it, a lot more to it than what you and I are discussing.
The whole council, the community. You're just not talking to me, you're talking to the town of Forest Heights. You're talking to its residents.
I get it.
So, I would just say this, a deficiency was identified, and we believe that although we had to go with this route to correct this portion of it, moving forward, when this is done, we have a plan to fix the deficiencies permanently, incorporating a CFO, other things, Bill.com, QuickBooks Online, things to make us more self-sufficient and not have any more problems with the same things that we have been experiencing for the last, you know, and this is nothing on you know, Mrs. Vaughn.
Oh, no.
You know, this is it's a group effort. I mean, you know, this has been going on. I mean, prior to me coming on the council, doing some of our other terms or whatever, we have always historically have had to file for an extension. And it is, you know, my intent with the help of, you know, the staff and you, my peers, that, you know, we correct this so moving forward into the future, we don't have these deficiencies anymore. The finance department needs an upgrade. By hook or crook, it's gonna get an upgrade. We have hit a bump in the road. This is the only way that we have come up with to solve it in a short period of time, because we have a small window of opportunity to get this done.
So is it the 60 days we have to get it done? And that's why we came with the 60, or
how did
Is
we
that
come about the
realistic?
60?
I guess that's what-
Realistically, based on what, after talks with Mr. DeSalvo and knowing what we have to do, we believe that 60 days is more than enough time for us to get our act together. Mr. O'Connor.
I did an assessment based on the audit and the workload that was due, and looking at that time frame and schedules that needed to be put together and information that needed to be given to UHY, what it came down to is a reasonable time frame is 60 days in order to accomplish that. There are goals that are intermediary to that in order to get everything to UHY so they can put everything together and it can be submitted. To your question earlier, Council Member, the first step, of course, is acknowledging a problem and or the deficiency that's there, and that has been acknowledged. And I want to say that I hear exactly what you're saying. So we've acknowledged that. Mr. Robinson taking an active role in it. Look, we realize that the resources within the financial department do need to be expanded in order to facilitate the workload that is now in that office, and that. Audits, traditionally I'm used to October, they're approved, they're pushed up, they're ready to go. And you're immediately, and when July 1 of that new fiscal year starts, you're working on the audit for the previous fiscal year, 4 months, boom, out the door, let's keep moving on. That is the goal, right there. That is the goal. So when July 1 happens, that next fiscal year, that fiscal year's audit is starting, October, turned around and pushed. That's what we're working to. So at least, you, the residents, the mayor, and the staff understand where we're trying to get to. That CFO that we discussed is going to be crucial to that. The accounts receivable and payable, crucial to that. Ms. Vaughn is going to be crucial to this process, working together. Mr. DeSalvo is the intermediary piece in order to facilitate where we need to get to now, so the next one is not as far behind. I don't want it to be late, but I'm going to say not as far behind. But we're going to get there, and it's expeditiously is my way to get there. And I try to cut out as much red tape as I possibly can and make it efficient, legal, and appropriate when doing so. So I will say, been great support from Mr. Robinson, the mayor, and the rest of the staff to get there. Ms. Vaughn has been a true champ in listening to me go through the processes. So I appreciate her teamwork on it as well.
I appreciate that.
If not, there's any other new business? All right, hearing none. Time is now 8:53 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.